Well, this is part of what's so good about Hasegawa. They can do these really sharp molds. Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies. I'm going to open box one of these Hasegawa kits. Now this is a 24 scale kit of the BMW 318 from the Schnitzer team that was raced during the 1993 BTCC, which is a British Touring Car Championships. Now this is quite special because it's got the really classical Schnitzer type colours, which were made famous because this particular car came first in the championship, and they also came second, which was quite amazing. So let's have a closer look inside. And there you got some really nice box art. So you've got the number 22 car here being depicted of Winkelhock. So this is the winning car. And you can see how it's got the Fina, and you've got the broken flag towards the back, which became synonymous with these Schnitzer cars. All right, let's open up inside. And we've got a few bags of sprue, and we've got the bodywork here. So let's have a look at each one. Let's start with the body. I always like starting on the body. Seeing that this is the main component of the kit, this is the part that we're going to judge it by, really how good it is. Now it's a pretty basic kit. It's a curbside, there's no engine detail, no opening panels. But all the concentration is going to be on the livery. And that's the tricky part of doing these sort of race cars. So let me just zoom in a bit, and I'll see if I can get a closer detail pics. Let's see, is that zoomed in? Is that focused? Always really hard when it's white. That's probably about right. Okay, so you can see the rubber protection line across here. That's really nice and crisp. Hang on. Are we focused? Maybe there. There we go. It's better. You can see how detailed the door handles are. You've got a little lock there as well for the key. And the B pillar, the C pillar. Also the line here for the rear door. And then across the top is quite sharp with the rain gutters as well. Well, this is part of what's so good about Hasegawa. They can do these really sharp molds. You've got the fuel tank cap, rear end. Okay, so you can see how this is a fairly basic in that it doesn't actually have light buckets. Some newer cars will have light buckets where they're actually curved. These will still look good. I mean, you just need to paint this up in a nice chrome. And then you use your clears on your rear light lenses. It's actually quite crisp. Okay, so the other side obviously is going to be the same. You get your lower apron here. You've got the covers for the bolts. Got the indicator there. That's molded in. Then the front end actually has some reflector buckets in there. And it's more important on the front end too, because you're going to have the clear lenses where you're going to be able to see a lot of this detail. And then you can see the grille as well. Super fine, nice gaps. You can see through there as well. Okay. I think in general that's pretty good. All the proportions look right. That's nice. Okay, so there's the bodywork. Right, let's move on to, I've got clear parts here. Okay, so with the clear, we've got a single piece that does all the windows. It keeps it very simple. Something like that though means that you probably want to cut off this and test fit it within the body first, because occasionally when you get the bodies can be malformed a little bit, and when you fit these inside you might have massive gaps along the sides. So it's good to test fit, and if you do need to adjust the bodies can be adjusted slightly just by putting them into warm water, or hot water actually, to soften it up, and then you can adjust it, hold it in place and let it cool down, and you'll get a better fit. So this is part again of what I call, why I describe this as a fairly basic kit. Not so many parts, quick build. you can concentrate on all the bodywork. We've got some of the lenses here. We've got the front headlight lenses, and then we have the rear tail light lenses. Some, these are the internal lenses for the headlights and the high beam as well. Now with these cars, this is heading towards what I call the modern car, where they had blacked out sections on the windows. So they do have the markings here. So outside along the edges, this is where you're going to need to mask and paint the black from the inside. And it's going to be helped with some mask which they supply, and I'll get to that later. That's with the bag with all the decals. Okay, so there's all the clear parts, and then we end up with a big packet here with multiple sets of sprue in it. So let's pop that over here and we'll look at each bit individually. Oh. Alright, so here we have the floor pan. Again, curbside, you've got a little bit of engine detail. It's all the stuff that's just on the bottom. So you got the base of the engine with gearbox, and then the tail shaft. You have all the suspension that's going to be hanging off this section. Front, well, there's a front bumper, rear bumper, steering rod, and you got the front struts there. On this side, this is going to be where the interior is going to sit. So there's an interior bucket for the cockpit, and that's this one here. So let's have a closer look. I'll zoom in on some of these bits. Let's look at, there's your front bumper. Again, you've got some really nice crisp venting here. Some fog lamp moldings. There's the bucket, so there's clear sections there for lenses as well. There's the rear bumper. And then that's the floor pan. So you see the minimal detail, but I mean, it's still good detail. You got the pressings on the bottom of the floor pan. There's the spare tire impression, and then the tanker will be down there as well. So here's the struts for the front end and the steering rod. Okay, so we'll move that over here, and then we've got the interior bucket. Okay, so there's a rear vision mirror right there. The interior bucket. It's a stripped out style bucket. So obviously it will be stripped out for racing. So we can get the shadows so you can see that. So you've got the positions for your race seat. You have the dashboard across here. And then that's the rear end where you can just see the pressings, because there's no rear seat fitted, obviously, to keep it all lightweight. And then I'd say there'll be a roll cage which is fitted inside there as well. Okay, from there we move on to the racing seat. It's a bit hard to see. Let's do this, I think. Let's go like that. Okay, so you got the rail. This part is probably a, don't know, it looks more like a registration plate there, and then you got the racing seat. Okay, let's see if I can get that focused. There we go. So there's a rail right there. That's the registration type plate, and there's your racing seat, all molded in one. You see the ribbing on the back there. Now I guess they've molded this in black because it's probably going to be carbon fiber back and suede on the front. You get the holes there for the seat belts as well. Not sure, well, I don't think it comes with the seat belts as separate, but if you wanted to add them, that wouldn't be too hard. Just cut some little paper ones and poke them through, paint them whatever color they're meant to be, possibly red, just to add a bit of extra detail. Okay, so there's your seat. Oh, I might as well keep that here because we've still got the tyres involved. Okay, so we've got the tyres, slick tyres, and there's a set of, what do I call those again, polycaps, so that once they're fitted, they actually rotate as well. So there we go. Got a slight line down the centre. I mean, all these tyres will have a mould line down the centre. Very easy to remove just with some sanding paper. Probably stuff like a 400 grit. Should scrub those down, make them look worn, and get rid of that line. Okay. All right, so let's put that back. Next up, we've got this sprue here. Oops, let's take this off. They're the wheels. Here we've got the roll cage components and the dashboard. You've got the side mirrors, steering wheel, and some internal components for the cockpit as well. You've got a windshield wiper, and then there's gear shift levers. Okay, let's have a closer look. All right, so here's the dashboard. Pretty basic racing dashboard. There's the rear vision. Actually, the mirror parts that go inside the inserts here. So just need to paint those up in a mirror chrome. Here's parts of your roll cage. Okay, you got side components for left and right. And then down towards the bottom, there's your rear end sections and your cross members. There's the steering wheel. There are those extra bits and pieces, such as gear shift lever, and there's a windshield wiper. And when you have a look at the insides of the roll cage, there are some points, like here you've got some mold release pin marks. So you want to do a really nice job, you'll just need to fill those in and give them a light sand. Okay, so that's that. And then the last big sprue is this one here. You've got your exhaust system, that's all in one piece. Tank, you've got, that'll probably be the front end lower arms. These are rear end, you've got the diff and the trailing arms. Big huge disc brakes, bigger ones for the front, smaller ones for the rear. And then there's more struts here for the suspension, and there's the rear shocks. Okay, so let's have a look there. Let's get a closer look. All right, so there's a rear diff. Got the cooling fins there. You can see how sharp they are. They're really nice. Okay, the front and lower arms. Fuel tank. This will be part of the rear struts as well. Rear shocks, front disc brakes, rear disc brakes, and as you can see, they're all molded in one. You've got the calipers attached. Again, rear swing arm or struts, I guess. And then there's the exhaust system, all in one piece. And then output here, and then you've got a couple of towing hooks, which will be for the front and the rear. Now I'm going to leave it on the zoom there because we'll bring in the wheels. There's some really nice spoke wheels. So you've got two sets, obviously, identical for the front and the back. Okay, so there are all the plastic parts. Now what we've got left is you got your bag with the decals, which are quite magnificent. I mean, this is part of the highlights of this particular kit. Just carefully pick that up here. Alright, so we've got some, these are the tyre decals, and these are your masks for the windows. These are all pre-cut. So let's have a closer look at this one. We'll do a bit of zoomy there. Alright, so you can see how these large sections of the decal for the flag, they're in quite big sheets. And you can also notice that the carrier film is quite thin. Okay, let's get in that reflection. Which is going to be helpful because laying down large decals is not the easiest thing, and you don't really want them really thick. Just need to take care as you're applying them so they don't tear. And this is going to be quite a lot of decal work. Okay, so you need quite a lot of decal set to make sure all these decals sit nicely on the surfaces. And then we've got some decals there for the seat belts. Now, like I said earlier, if you want to extend the seat belts all the way past the back of the racing seat, you can quite easily do that with some thin paper. And then you could replicate all the rest of this with the paper as well. All the harness clips there, that'll be a bit harder to do. Photo etch normally works better for those, but again, you could just use them as is on the decal and put on something thicker. And then if you did make these out of paper again, I'll be cutting out those seatbelts and then using those as separate decals on the new seatbelts that you made. Just making seatbelts like that with more depth adds so much more, because sometimes just using these, it looks way too flat. Okay, so these are decals for the two drivers. You've got the choices of Winkelhock, who is the actual winner of the series, or the Soper as well, who came second. Across the top here, you've got the Warsteiner logos. And then you've got the racing number decals, so they're generic, and then you place the number that you like in them. So number 22 is for Winkelhock, number 6 for Soper. And then you get your BBS down here for your BBS wheels. And you can see there that these are printed in Japan. Okay, so they're the decals. Oops. Now let's have a closer look at these Tyre decals. Now, the Tyre decals here they're quite a common reverse decal. Okay, so if you're not familiar with reverse decal, these are actually printed in reverse. Okay, so they're actually Yokohama backwards. Now these are a bit tricky because the idea with these is they're meant to work like a dry transfer. Okay, but they're actually a water slide decal. Now these first came out many, many years ago with Tamiya's F1 type cars and racing cars, and they apply totally differently. So we've got a bit of protective paper here. Okay, that's because they're already self-adhesive. And self-adhesive is just to help them tack onto the tyre. Now you need to cut these out of the backing paper all the way around like you would with a normal decal. But before you put them in the water, you peel off this protective paper, drop it into the water, and then quickly pull them out and put them on some moist toweling. Now what's going to happen is you need to wait until that decal, or the paper itself, the backing paper, actually I think I'm explaining myself incorrectly. These need to be peeled up from the backing paper. I'm probably confusing everyone now. So you cut it out as per normal around. You use this front protective paper to hold it together so you can actually peel off one layer of the cardboard. And then you stick this onto the surface of the tyre. That's why it's self-adhesive. And while it's there, because you peeled it up with just a very thin layer of the backing paper, you apply water to that with your finger onto the back, and you just continually check that backing paper until it looks like it's released that decal, and then you peel it off. And then you roll over the top of a moist cotton wool bud, then that's applied. Now you don't get a lot of chances with this. There's only 4 decals. Now I would suggest, if you can, perhaps one of these has got the backing paper, to try it on one of these options here. If you had a Tamiya kit, they will give you spare decals to try, because these are tricky. Okay, so that's the Tyre decals, and then you end up with, these are the window masks. You can't actually see, but these are actually pre-cut, which makes it a lot easier. They're all marked, so you know which one goes where. You got your front windscreen, rear windscreen, and the sides. Okay, so let's quickly go through the manual. Let's get that focus so you can see what's going on. Okay, so you've got pretty standard Hasegawa looking manual here. You've got a brief description of the history. You've got your color codes, which will be the GSI colors. And then you get into, here's your legend of all the parts, so you know exactly which bits are which. Certain areas, or certain bits are not going to be used. So that registration plate I found before on the black sprue with the racing seat, you're not going to use that. Then we get into construction. So we start with the interior. You've got the dashboard into the interior bucket seat as well. You've got the roll cage, that all fits together. And then you've got your sub-assembly of the interior finished. Next we'll work on the floor pan and the underbelly of the car. So rear drive with the suspension. Then you've got your tanks, exhaust system, front end with the struts and the lower arm. You've got your interior bucket getting joined onto the floor pan, wheels and tires going into place. Then we start work on the body. So these are the window masks I show you. You stick those on the inside of the clear, or actually here, spray it all black, and then peel them off. And here's the body work. Okay, so we've got the interior clear going on the inside of the body. You've got the racing mirrors with their inserts, front end assembly, and then we finish off with rear light lenses, rear bumper, front bumper, and then the body going onto the chassis. And then you get a very extensive decal instructions. So this is going to be your major challenge here. So many decals, just got to make sure that they all line up correctly too. So when you're doing the flags, you probably want those to be done in one go, so they do line up. You need them to be wet so you'll be able to move them around and have them aligned properly. So something like this, I'll do the top ones first and then align the side ones. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So that is my open box review of the Hasegawa 1:24 scale Schnitzer BMW that was raced at the 1993 British Touring Car Championships, which came first and second. First being finished by Winkelhock. So there we go. So it's not the most, I guess, complicated kit, which in some ways is a bonus, I think. But it does look very good once it's finished. And it's got the very iconic livery of the Schnitzer team. So there you go. Thank you for watching.